Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a new series that I am tentatively calling Book Bite-Offs, where I compare two books to each other. This idea just came off the top of my head after I received a book from my mom's coworker and realized that in my TBR, hey, I have another book with the same title, so why not read them both at the same time and compare them? Will this be a series? I don't know. Will it always be based on same title? I don't think so, but for now, let's just enjoy this video as is and compare two similar books with similar titles. So I will start with the backstory. So my mom came home from work one night and her coworker said, "Bailey, my coworker gave you this book because you like vampires. Read it." And I went, okay. So the book turned out to be Lost Souls by Lisa Jackson, which is many books into an already established series. So this was a fun book to get tossed right into my hands. And then as I was looking at the book, I thought to myself, hey, isn't there another vampire book titled Lost Souls? And there is. It's a very famous one. So on my TBR, I also had Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite, and I decided, hey, let's read both of these books at the same time and compare the two. So here we are now at the Book Bite-Off, the first episode, Lost Souls. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Lost Souls by Lisa Jackson. This book was published in 2008, and funnily enough, there are 0 Twilight references in this book. So, was it trying desperately not to bring up Twilight because it was too popular at the time? Or, more realistically, was it riding the coattails of the new vampire trend that was rising from 2006 on because of the Twilight series? Was it riding its coattails? I think so. So it turns out this is book 5 in the Rick Benz Ruben Montoya thriller series. I think they are 2 cops from New Orleans, and maybe they investigate pseudo-paranormal phenomenon and crimes. I have no idea, because the book isn't even about Rick or Ruben. It's about Rick's daughter, Christy. So according to this book, Christy Benz is the daughter of Rick Benz, and she is about 27 or 28, and she has decided to readmit herself into All Saints College, which is the college she went to initially, not only because she wants to study a general program, but because she wants to investigate the disappearance of 4 random girls at the college, and she believes that they have fallen victim to some sort of vampire killer or some sort of cult. There is a famous vampire studies course at the college, and she thinks that the professor is too charismatic and is luring people into his sick fantasies. So that is the initial pitch of the novel. Let's get into more of the details and my review of the thing. So this book has multiple points of view. It has Christy, her father's new wife who wants to have a baby, even though I think they're in older age, Christy's former boyfriend from the college, who is now a professor at the college because he's replacing a professor who had to leave. We also follow the point of view of the killer. I hate that trope so much. I don't care what the killer's doing. I know they're being nefarious. I know they're being a killer somewhere. I don't need the killer, as Wendy Williams calls him, to constantly interrupt the flow of my story to just be creepy in the background. No thank you. This happened in the book The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, and I didn't like it there either. And to top it all off, the killer refers to himself as Vlad. Ugh. This book is very easily accessible. It has very simple descriptive language, and it constantly reiterates plots from previous novels, so it can catch up new-coming readers like myself, which I was grateful for because otherwise I'd have no idea what was going on between these characters. So there are constant reminders of how people are connected, what happened in the previous books, and how the main character has been stalked by 2 previous serial killers now and has almost died twice because of it. That's very funny to me. Like, You can't get caught by that many serial killers in your lifetime, statistically. This book also contains a lot of stereotypes. One that I will pick out, for example, is that every professor has to capture their students' attention. They can't just be a normal, stuffy, boring college professor who wears tweed suits and reads books. No, they have to sit backwards in their chairs and talk about the modern thing, or the creepy thing, or the cool thing. They have to be the cool guy. Every single professor is the cool guy. Just have a wide range of professors, from boring to normal to weird to cool. You know, like a normal college. Another weird convention of this book is everyone says what they're thinking out loud to themselves alone. It's weird. So someone will be reading, like, for example, a case file, and then they'll go, "That's not right. That's not what is going to happen. That's not the evidence." Out loud, just think. Just think in your head. You're allowed that. Another excuse for speaking out loud is also talking to their pet. One character has a dog, one character has a cat, so they talk to those pets. I get talking to your pets, but I don't say what I'm thinking out loud to my pet. My pet doesn't care. My thoughts care. I don't know. There is depictions of graphic violence and sexual violence in this novel, and it is very gratuitous. It is meant to be shocking, meant to be scary, meant to be gross, and I think in a sense that's effective. It is just very, very nasty stuff, and the thoughts of the killer are really, really gross, obviously, and I think that they're grosser because of how the plot progresses. Spoiler alert, not a real vampire in this book, it's just some sick, crazed individual. So yeah, that purposefully being that gross connects to the reader because a human being is thinking these thoughts and not a vampire. There are a lot of pop cultural references to vampires in this novel. They reference Dracula, they reference Buffy, funnily enough, they reference capes, fangs, coffins, moats, and they use the word camp properly. So you know what? Good for them on that. Good use of your vampire pop culture references. But once again, no Twilight. Funny, huh? This is meant to be an incredibly easy read, but it is one of those mystery thrillers where every character is a red herring, but they don't end up being a true red herring because the killer, or spoiler alert, killers, are random people we've never met or have been introduced to. I hate that. How am I supposed to be reading the novel and guessing who the killer is if the killers end up being two random people? I'm not going to spoil the book completely, but there are a lot of reveals and twists that come out of nowhere, and the killers are only revealed at the final scenes of the book where the actual attacks are taking place again. And the killers are barely mentioned at the beginning, and they are imposters. They are replacing people that already exist. They are hiding their identities. How am I supposed to know any of this? Also, the killers are very stereotypically sick in the head. They're mentally ill. They're little freaks without any nuance to mental illness or any other disorders that they might have. They're just sick in the head. They're based on Vlad the Impaler and Elizabeth Bathory, which are very cheap references. So of course the girl wants to bathe in the blood for her youth and beauty, and the man wants to be sick and impale women. And everything is resolved immediately, everything is resolved quickly, everyone's arrested, everyone's taken care of, everyone's hospitalized, all in one book. Obviously, to just conclude the story faster, and to get back to the characters in the novel that you care about. I didn't care about anyone in this novel, so any of the plot progression that happened, I just sort of skimmed by, because I was like, I don't care, I'm never going to read these characters again. So this was my thoughts on Lost Souls by Lisa Jackson, which is book 5 in a series, and ultimately I'm giving the book 2 stars, just because it did a lot in the mystery thriller genre that I don't like, I couldn't connect to the characters, and I just thought that it was too easy, too cheap, a critique of vampires and sick individuals who like vampires. Who would possibly like vampires? I have no idea. And now on to the second book. This book is also titled Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite. Now, That is just a pen name. The author is trans. Their pronouns are he, him. So for the next part of this review, I will just be referring to them either by their pen name or as the author, because there's a lot of name changes, a lot of pronoun changes, and I want things to stay consistent. So this novel was published in 1992 and is considered one of the fresh original vampire stories in the genre. The author is very famous for telling pretty sick, pretty fresh, pretty original horror stories. I know one of his other famous stories is called Exquisite Corpse, and I believe it's about serial killers. Not my thing, but that is another book that he has written. So, you know, famous author. So this story is about a cast of characters living in either, I believe it's North Carolina and Louisiana, and they eventually converge and meet and connect and ruin each other's lives. So the cast of characters includes a trio of vampires who are going around drinking, fucking, and sucking the blood of people, killing them, and just ruining lives. One older vampire named Christian, who is a more conventional vampire. He has fangs, and he follows a few of those conventions of regular vampires. There is a sort of half vampire boy named Nothing, who was born of one of from the trio of vampires. That one vampire impregnated a girl, and when you impregnate someone as a vampire and they gave birth to a vampire baby, they die no matter what. So that is a danger in this novel. And we also follow a human and his best friend Ghost, who is sort of clairvoyant or psychic or something. And together they all converge and connect and ultimately ruin each other's lives. The descriptions and language in this novel is way more conventionally part of a vampire story. It's very crisp, it's very precise, it's very detailed, and it also contains the themes of love, sex, death, and queerness. Queerness is much a heavy influence in this novel. There are a lot of queer characters, gender queer, and queer sexuality, and that is very, very exciting to see. There is also a fear of conception, a fear of childbirth that comes to the fact that vampires, when they impregnate someone, the mother dies no matter what. So it's very much a fear of, child rearing, childbearing, and connects to how vampires in any aspect will ultimately destroy you, even if they don't drink your blood. Now, this book is pretty notorious for having a lot of very, very dark themes and a lot of taboo themes. We have mostly everything in here. We have graphic sex, graphic violence, sexual violence, and incest. But I think that these are approached in a more easier to consume way because everyone who does these things is a monster. Or they're not even human. They're the vampire characters who take part in the incestuous undertones in the graphic violence. So as something that's not even human, I'm more easy to accept it because it's not sick for vampires to do it. They're a totally different species. They're monsters anyway. They're violent anyway. They kill people for their food. So in my head, I'm like, sure, this incest element, it's wrong and it's pretty gross, but the characters just sort of accept it because they don't follow human societal convention. It's all described very frankly. It's not described to shock you in any way. And since everybody in this novel falls outside of societal norms anyway, why not incest as well? A lot of underage stuff too. Obviously, not everybody else is comfortable with these themes and events, so obviously if that turns you off, don't read this. That's fine. You don't have to read this. But I wasn't horrified by it. I've accepted it as part of this singular story, and I was able to keep on reading. Now, this book falls under a very typical style of vampire stories. I see it more as a similarity to The Lost Boys or Near Dark, which are actually the only two vampire references in the novel. So obviously the author was heavily, heavily influenced by those stories, and I can definitely see that. This is a sort of vampire standalone novel that I've seen all the time and is a great addition to those kinds of stories. A lot of male-centric stories, a lot of outside society stories. They're like vagabonds in a sense, and I can just totally see people who enjoy those films really enjoying this novel. I myself enjoyed the characters of Christian, the character Nothing and his storyline, and the character Ghost and his arc. I really enjoy characters who are kind of psychic in a way and kind of oddballs in society, and everyone just accepts them as just being weird and allows them to be weird and listens to them when they have visions and stuff. So I really liked those characters and their plots. But for the rest of the novel, I sort of understood what it was going for, so I was just along for the ride, and ultimately I did enjoy this novel. I obviously enjoyed it more than this Lost Souls, but I am only going to be giving the book 3 stars. It's very solid, very good. I would recommend it, like I said, if you are prepared for those more taboo events. So, the biggest similarities between these two novels are, aside from having vampire-influenced vampire characters and a lot of violence in them, is that they are both set in Louisiana. Thank you, Anne Rice. Thanks. Thanks for this. So, Lost Souls by Lisa Jackson takes place in, I believe, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite takes place in a few other American states, but everyone eventually converges into New Orleans or parts of Louisiana. So, thanks. Vampires in New Orleans, groundbreaking. So, funnily enough, I found 2 stories that, even though they share the same title, they couldn't be more different from each other, and I think that is very, very awesome. This takes the vampire trope as sick individuals, violence, crime, blood, and losers who fall victim to vampires, while Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite shows these vampires, even though they aren't human, tries to make them as both monstrous and human as possible, and you connect to them, and you understand their violence, and you're just connected to all these characters, and you're trying to understand them, that even though they lay outside of society, that they're just trying to create a family, they're just trying to create a home for themselves. And I just think that it's awesome that I found 2 books with the exact same title that are completely different from each other. So, if you're looking for a very, very easy thriller where vampires are a scary monster, but they're not even vampires, Lisa Jackson. And if you're looking for a character-based novel that's very descriptive, very beautiful, and challenges your way of thinking, try Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite. And I think I will end this video by discussing what the titles mean. Why do they have the same title? What do they mean? So, Lost Souls by Lisa Jackson seems to allude to the 4 troubled girls who were murdered in the novel. Everyone in the novel keeps referring to them as lost souls or lost causes. They were all blamed to be runaways, to be criminals, to be sex workers, so their disappearances and ultimate deaths didn't mean anything to anyone, which means that the vampire serial killers were preying upon people that people didn't really care about to see disappear or leave. And the lost souls in the Poppy Z. Brite novel refers to 2 elements. So the first is the band of the human and the psychic. They have a band called Lost Souls, with a question mark, and that's their band, and Nothing finds out about the band and wants to meet them and connect with them because their music just connects to him on a spiritual level. And the Lost Souls obviously also refers to the vampires themselves because they are lost souls. They don't really connect anywhere in society except for each other, and they're all in separate areas trying to converge. So they are all lost souls. So that's it. That is my first book, Bite Off. That's my first comparison of 2 novels, that being 2 vampiric novels, both named Lost Souls. So thank you so much for watching. I don't know if I will continue this series anytime soon. I will need more ideas for that. So let me know in the comments if there's 2 books that are very, very similar in theme, in title, anything similar that I can try to compare and contrast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.